Lightweight, full frame, high quality cinema zoom lenses have been out of reach for filmmakers for as long as I could remember. But not too long ago, Laowa came out with the full frame Ranger zoom lenses, and I had a chance to test them out for a few weeks to see if they fit my workflow. More after this. So the Laowa Ranger is a full frame cinema zoom lens that has a constant aperture of 2.9. There are 3 lenses that come with the Laowa Rangers: the 16-30, the 28-75, and the 75-180. They come in PL mount, EF mount, L mount, Z mount, RF mount, and E mount. But for the test, here I had the PL mount. They have an image circle of 43.2 millimeters, which is more than enough for all full frame cameras. It also has a front filter thread for 77mm filters, and it also has full marks on both focus, zoom, and the 0.8 pitch gears for your follow focuses and other lens accessories. Now, like everyone who came up in the 5D generation and after, still zoom lenses have been the go-to for our cameras. They're affordable, they're lightweight, they're optically very good, and they cover most of the zoom range you need. I have my trusty Sigma 24-70 that it almost lives on my camera. For most paid jobs, it's my go-to. Now, some of the downsides of using stills glass. So the first thing is the focus throw. The amount of distance when you're rotating the lens to get those different focus areas, i.e. from 10 feet to 2 feet, on stills lenses is notoriously really slight. Sometimes you just turn the lens slightly and it's out of focus. Now, with a lot of cameras having autofocus, a lot of these features are alleviated. But for me, I don't always use autofocus, and I like to be manual focusing. The other weakness is that still zoom lenses aren't parfocal. Now, what parfocal means is when you zoom in and you get focus, even if you zoom out, your focus will still stay on the original thing you focused on. With still zoom lenses, when you try and zoom in, focus shifts slightly. They don't keep that focus, so you then need to focus up again. Now, with some autofocus lenses, it does still keep it, but those autofocus lenses only work if you have a compatible camera. And this brings me to the other drawback of still zoom lenses. They're locked into the mount of whichever camera manufacturer you're buying in. You might have a great Sony G Master lens, but you can only use that with your Sony cameras. So a lot of the great features you get, image stabilization, autofocus, all of those are kind of locked in to whatever camera mount you're using. But with cinema lenses, they traditionally come in PL mount. And with PL mount, it's more like an open source mount. As long as your camera can adapt to PL, which most mirrorless lens mount cameras can, you can use these lenses on whatever camera you want. And with all of the controls for the lens being outside on the body of the lens and not in the camera, it means lenses don't need to electronically interface with your camera. This means you can buy a cinema zoom lens once. You don't need to buy another lens when you switch to a different camera manufacturer. So I had a project where I was trying to copy the style of The Office / Abbott Elementary, you know, that documentary zoom when something dramatic is said. And I needed a zoom lens that was also parfocal. So when I had the opportunity to borrow the Laowa Rangers, it was a lens I was looking at anyway, and I was already borrowing the Pyxis. I had the 28-75 and the 75-180, and that was more than enough for the range of lenses I needed it. Now, I'm used to a 24-70, so I'm used to a little bit wider, but not as tight. At first, I was a bit apprehensive because I knew we had to shoot in a small room, and I knew of other projects where I have to shoot in a room. When you don't have much space to move your camera back, you can really use that extra 4 or 5 mil to just get you that width that you need. But using full frame cameras, full frame as a field of view, 28 isn't too bad. And I did find myself not missing the 24 as much, and even having the 75 at the long end of the lens just allowed me to get a little bit extra in those portrait shots that I wanted to use. So I wasn't switching lenses as often as I normally would when I'm going from a 24-70 to a 70-200. So the lens itself, if you're coming from DSLRs and still lenses, it is larger. It's basically the size of a 70 to 200 telephoto lens. It's about that kind of weight and size for both the 28 to 75 and the 75 to 180. In using this lens is where, for me, it really shines. So it has a 270-degree focus throw, which allows you to get your focus and travel and track with your subject, whether you're shooting a commercial, documentary. It just allows you to kind of follow them in a much smoother way. But it also has a 100-degree zoom throw that just allows you to get those zooms in a smoother way. And you can, I believe you can have like a little attachment like the old ENG lenses that just allow you to use your finger and just pull it, and so you have that more precise zooming and zooming out. This also has a back focus adjustment that allows you to then tweak your back focus on the lens. I didn't use this whilst I had the lens. I didn't want to mess with that back focus on a lens I don't own, but you can do that, and that's something, a great option you could have. I found using the lens really enjoyable. Yes, I use it more in sticks because when you're using smaller box style cameras, the lens really makes the camera quite long, so it's not really balanced. I think if you're going to use on the shoulder, you've got to really think about getting that really balanced shoulder rig so it kind of sits on your shoulder and it doesn't kind of sag or lean back or lean forward. So bear that in mind. It's probably perfect for a camera like the FX9 or even maybe the Ursa Cine, because you can put them on your shoulder and it just has enough weight at the back of the camera to offset the front of it. But even using it on the Pyxis 6K or the Kinefinity Mavo Edge, I normally operate when I'm doing handheld on a wrap bag, and it just allows me to still get that nice handheld feel. So now it's really what everyone's here to see. Visually, how does it weigh up? I'm going to put on screen for the next few minutes a comparison between the 24 to 70 Sigma and the Laowa, and I'm going to let you kind of make your decision for yourself. Okay, so you've watched that comparison. You know, for me, I feel the Laowa is just a little bit warmer and it has a little bit of a texture to it. So even though it's sharp, it never felt really too soft to use, it still feels like it retained a lot of detail and still had like a creaminess to it. It's a very subtle difference, and I just feel that it worked really well. I shot both on the Cinema 6K and I used the Morphage filter on the Cinema 6K for the PL mount. I just found using the lens, I kind of gravitated more towards it. I used it on the Kinefinity on a job that I was doing for another client, a popular museum here in the UK. I can't really show any footage from it, but I can show you the behind the scenes. I was filming small objects, small old antique objects, and the detail this captured both on the Mavo and on the FX6, which we're using as a B camera, it really felt there was a real richness to it. You know, when the lens is wide open, as you can see in the examples here, it's not soft. It's a very usable image. You know, it performs well, but when you close the lens down, obviously it gets sharper. This is normal across the board with lenses, unless you're using the very, very, very high end, you know, really good performance. I was really happy with how the lens performed. This is a zoom lens that you can rely on for most of your jobs and work in your career, and I think it just gives you a good base and a good coverage that allows you to then cover most of your bases. You know, if you get the 16 to 30, you can go all the way from 16 to 180 and have very similar optics, very similar uses, you know, similar focus throw. It just makes your workflow a bit more streamlined. Now, in terms of investment, they are more expensive than stills lenses. You can get it for just over $3,000 each, and you can get them as a bundle for just over $6,000 for the two of them. I haven't checked the site for a 3 bundle. I know the 60 to 30, and I didn't use that. Costs a little bit more because it's a wider lens. Now you can get versions that are the light version, which they're gray, and I didn't use them, but they save a bit of weight, and it costs about 400 or 500 pounds more, but they do allow you to have a lighter weight. Again, it's an investment, and you know, $3,000 for the one, $6,000 for the double set. But just think of it as a one-off purchase you're gonna do, and if this is the only lenses that you buy for your camera, and you maybe rent other lenses, I think that would be a good way to go. So those are my thoughts on the Laowa Ranger set. You know, let me know in the comments what you think. But also, if you want to check out the Laowa Ranger and other equipment, click on the link below to check out Pro AV. I am an affiliate and it does help the channel, but Pro AV are a wonderful equipment reseller here in the UK, and they supply Europe as well, and they're a really helpful team that will help you with your equipment needs. All right, everybody, thanks for watching, and remember, stay shooting.